TV10 News with Gabe Dalmuth, meteorologist John Hamilton, and sportscaster Richard Funky.
From WHEC-TV Rochester, this is NewsWatch 10 with Gabe Dalmuth, Janet Lomax, Rich Funky on sports, and meteorologist John Hamilton. From WHEC-TV Rochester, this is NightWatch 10 with Janet Lomax, Gabe Dalmuth, Rich Funky on sports, and meteorologist John Hamilton.
Good evening, I'm Laura Saxby. Janet is on assignment. An historic vote tonight by the Monroe County Legislature.
Good morning, everybody.
From WHEC-TV, this is Rochester's News Team with Maggie Brooks. This is News Team 10.
Good morning. Some wet weather, cooler weather as well. John Hamilton's forecast coming up right now, 53 degrees.
WHEC-TV, this is Rochester's News Team with Maggie Brooks and meteorologist Mark Finan. This is News Team 10. From WHEC-TV, this is Rochester's News Team with Janet Lomax, Gabe Dalmuth, meteorologist John Hamilton with live Rochester Doppler radar, and Rich Funky on sports. This is News Team 10.
A state of emergency remains in effect tonight. It's situations like this one that are making our area a very dangerous place. Good evening, Janet's off tonight.
From WHEC-TV, this is Rochester's News Team with Laura Saxby, meteorologist Keith Eichner with live Rochester Doppler radar, and Rick Hager on sports. This is News Team 10. Live from WHEC-TV, your 24-hour news channel. This is News 10 at 11 with Laura Saxby, meteorologist John Kay with live Rochester Doppler radar, and Steve Hausman on sports. This is News 10.
Good evening. The first one was the strongest earthquake to hit Southern California since 1952.
This is Rochester's 24-hour news channel, and up to the minute. This is News 10.
You're watching News 10 NBC's AM Live Sunday with Wendy Wright and meteorologist Richard Cornelia. Live, local, and up to the minute.
Here's News 10 NBC at noon with Rebecca LeClaire and meteorologist Kevin Williams. Live, local, and up to the minute.
Good afternoon. I'm Wendy Wright here for Rebecca LeClaire today, who's on maternity leave. You've already noticed, I'm sure, it's a gloomy day out there.
Deputies say an unlicensed driver caused a crash that killed 2 people in Orleans County.
A summer farm stand is hit by thieves for a 3rd time, and it's all caught on tape.
The winners start to claim their prize in a huge Powerball jackpot.
Making housing accessible for people with disabilities coming up a local family struggle.
Live, local, and up to the minute.
Good evening. I'm Brett Davidson.
I'm Shelley Rabando.
Now, here's the latest from News 10 NBC. Live, local, and up to the minute.
Good evening. I'm Ted Coppy. Gabe is off tonight. A warning tonight about a rapist.
Police say 2 teenage girls have been sexually assaulted. Both incidents happened on the city's southwest side.
You're watching News 10 NBC with Janet Lomax and Gabe Dalmuth. Live, local, and up to the minute.
Billy Joel's September concert at the Carrier Dome is rescheduled.
Live from the 10 NBC studios in downtown Rochester, this is News 10 Today.
Morning, I'm Gabe Dalman.
I'm Rebecca LeClaire.
And I am Rich Cornelia, and welcome back, Gabe.
Yes.
I hear stories about you guys talking about me while, while I'm gone.
This is News 10 NBC at noon with Rebecca LeClaire. And from the 10 NBC Weather Lab, meteorologist Kevin Williams. Live, local, and up to the minute. You're watching News 10 NBC at noon with Rebecca LeClaire. And from the 10 NBC Weather Lab, meteorologist Kevin Williams. Live, local, and up to the minute. Now, here's the latest from News 10 NBC. America Strikes Back.
Good evening, I'm Elizabeth Chernak. Wendy has the night off. The U.S. Capitol will reopen tomorrow.
You're watching News 10 NBC. Live, local, and up to the minute. Now, live from the News 10 NBC studios in downtown Rochester, this is News 10 Today.
Good morning. Welcome to News 10 Today. I'm Nikki Rudd. Rebecca LeClaire is off today.
I'm Gabe Dalman. And I am Rich Cornelia, and apparently Rebecca can't take the news. Well, she read the paper this morning.
Digging for answers, reporting them first. This is News 10 NBC at noon with Rebecca LeClaire and meteorologist Kevin Williams in the News 10 NBC Weather Lab. Digging for answers, reporting them first. This is News 10 NBC at 6 with Gabe Dowland, Janet Lomax, Rich Funky Sports, and meteorologist Kevin Williams in the News 10 NBC Weather Lab. Live, local, and up to the minute. This is News 10 NBC at 11.
Good evening, I'm Brian Martin.
You're watching News 10 NBC at 11. Rochester's #1 late local newscast with Janet Lomax and Brian Martin. Live, local, and up to the minute. Digging for answers, reporting them first. This is News 10 NBC at 11 with Jennifer Johnson, Mark Rubaugh Sports, and meteorologist Josh Nichols in the News 10 NBC Weather Lab.
Good evening. I'm Janet Lomax.
I'm Brian Martin.
You're watching 10 NBC Rochester. Now with the latest developments here at home and abroad. Target Iraq. This is News 10 NBC.
Good evening. I'm Janet Lomax.
I'm Gabe Dalman.
Rochester's Fast Ferry, the premier passage, with live continuing coverage. This is News 10 NBC, digging for answers, reporting them first. Now from the News 10 NBC studios in downtown Rochester, Pat McGonigal, Rebecca LeClaire, and meteorologist Rich Cornelia, digging for answers, reporting them first. This is News 10 NBC Today. Now from the News 10 NBC studios in downtown Rochester, Rebecca LeClaire and meteorologist Rich Cornelia, digging for answers, reporting them first. This is News 10 NBC at noon. Now from the News 10 NBC studios in downtown Rochester, digging for answers, reporting them first. This is News 10 NBC at 11. Digging for answers, reporting them first. This is News 10 NBC at 11 with Jennifer Johnson and meteorologist Josh Nichols from the News 10 NBC Weather Lab. News 10 NBC, covering Rochester and all of Western New York. Coverage you can count on. This is News 10 NBC at 5.
An unwelcome silence on the Northern Illinois University campus today.
You're watching News 10 NBC at 5 with Rich Funky, Robin DeWin, and Chief Meteorologist Kevin Williams. Coverage you can count on. This is News 10 NBC at 5. News 10 NBC, covering Rochester and all of Western New York. Coverage you can count on. This is News 10 NBC at 6.
Children to the beach to escape the heat, but health officials warn that kids with asthma should be taken out of the sun and into the air conditioning. Good evening, I'm Rich Funky.
I'm Janet Lomax.
You're watching News 10 NBC at 6 with Janet Lomax, Rich Funky, Chief Meteorologist Kevin Williams, and Sports with Mark Gruba. Coverage you can count on. This is News 10 NBC at 6.
The former police chief in Mount Morris has agreed never to...
You're watching News 10 NBC at 11 with Rich Funky, Jennifer Johnson, Chief Meteorologist Kevin Williams, and Sports with Mark Gruba. Coverage you can count on. This is News 10 NBC at 11. With coverage you can count on from New York City and here in Rochester. This is a special edition of News 10 NBC, remembering 9/11. Now, from Ground Zero, here is Rich Funky.
Good evening from Ground Zero in New York, where the hustle and bustle that is typically the Big Apple was obviously more subdued today.
Now, from News 10 NBC, coverage you can count on. This is News 10 NBC Today.
In just 8 hours, there will soon be a new man in charge of the state of New York, and our coverage of today's change in power begins this morning. Hello, everyone. Welcome to News 10 NBC Today. I'm Rebecca LeClaire.
And I'm Pat McGonigal. And speaking of changes, maybe you've noticed there's a lot of changes around here. We have a new set this morning. We're very excited about it. We start our 7 p.m. newscast. It's St. Patrick's Day, and there's so much to talk about.
Now, from News 10 NBC, coverage you can count on. This is News 10 NBC at noon. Now, from News 10 NBC, coverage you can count on. This is News 10 NBC at 5.
We just want to go home, and they're telling us till Saturday.
A snowstorm at a very inconvenient time continues to cause problems for travelers looking to get back home. We didn't have much shoveling to do here, but the Northeast blizzard is having a ripple effect on our...
Now, from News 10 NBC, coverage you can count on. This is News 10 NBC at 6.
This is the type of child he was. You know, he would do anything for anybody, and he 100%.
Police say he helped his father get out of their burning home, then he went back in, but he never came back out. Tonight, a 16-year-old boy from Macedon is being called a hero. Good evening, I'm Christine Van Timmeren.
Now, from News 10 NBC, coverage you can count on. This is News 10 NBC at 7.
Eliot Spitzer is out. David Patterson is in. New York State has a new governor tonight, and he says it's time to get to work. Good evening. A momentous day for New York State as Lieutenant Governor David Patterson was sworn in as the 55th governor, taking over for Eliot Spitzer, who resigned in disgrace last week.
Live from the News 10 NBC studios in downtown Rochester, this is ROC City Tonight with Leah Lando.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us. I'm Leah Lando. It was a thrilling finish at the tournament in Buffalo last night. The Russian team scored 5 straight goals in a come-from-behind win over...
Now, from News 10 NBC, coverage you can count on. This is News 10 NBC at 11.
First it was snow, now it's turning to sleet. Soon it will be freezing rain, and the timing could put a kink in your morning commute. Good evening, I'm Rich Funky.
I'm Jennifer Johnson. You may even want to grab your umbrella and definitely watch your step.
This is WHEC-TV, proudly serving Rochester. News 10 NBC Today starts right now.
It is 6 o'clock on the dot. Polls are now open. It is Election Day 2013.
Here's a live look at the polling place on North Winton Road in Rochester. The doors there just open to voters a few seconds ago. We are tracking all the races important to you and your community this morning. Polls will be open for the next 15 hours. You have until 9 tonight to cast that ballot.
This is WHEC-TV, proudly serving Rochester. News 10 NBC starts right now.
It was great. The snow is deep, the sledding's awesome, and we figured if it snows, we might as well go sledding.
You might as well. Well, with school out for the holidays and many families on vacation this week, the storm came at just the right time. The first major winter storm of the season left us with more than a foot of snow in some places.
Yeah, no major problems have been reported.
This is WHEC-TV, proudly serving Rochester. News 10 NBC starts right now.
The sound of snowblowers and shovels were heard around the area today as people dug their way out of the first big snowstorm we've had here in quite a while. Many places were covered in more than a foot of snow by the time this storm moved on out. Good evening, I'm Leah Landa.
And I'm Don Hudson. You know, places south and east of Rochester got the most accumulation of snow.
News 10 NBC, digging for answers, reporting them first.